One of the biggest lies our consumerist society has successfully pushed upon us through centuries of brainwashing is that work isn't just about making money. It's about finding your purpose and contributing to the greater good of society. Now, whether this degenerate modern society is even worthy of our contribution is highly debatable in the first place, but we've already talked about this in plenty of other videos, so let's move on to the more important issues that this video is about. Why does modern work feel so meaningless, so nihilistic, and more importantly, can you escape this soulless 9-to-5 grind? You guys have been asking for solutions a lot recently, instead of just pointing out problems. Fair enough, and I think for this specific topic, I might just have one that could work for a lot of you. The book BS Jobs by David Graeber makes a great argument that around 50% of jobs in modern society serve no real purpose. Now, I want to make it very clear that neither he nor I are saying this to disrespect the people working them, but rather the broken modern day system that forces them to be there. A lot of jobs just exist for the sole purpose of stroking the ego of the rich and powerful. For example, those door attendants you see at luxury hotels. It's not like people aren't capable of opening doors by themselves. It doesn't serve any real practical purpose. It is purely a BS job. Now, there is another type of nihilistic, meaningless job too, which I talked about in a recent video. They aren't really technically meaningless. I mean, these jobs do actually serve an objective purpose and meaning for society, but they feel meaningless to the individual working them. For example, a cashier at a grocery store actually performs an important task that this society couldn't function without. But they feel like their job has no purpose, mostly because even though this hypocritical society depends on them to keep functioning, they also hardcore shame and humiliate them at the same time for working these necessary jobs. Graeber further argues that the reason this is so dangerous is because we've been brainwashed by centuries of Protestant work ethic propaganda that our self-worth is completely and entirely tied to our job, therefore creating the dangerously toxic psychological association that if your job is meaningless, then so is your worth as a human being. It's a bit funny that this book came out in 2018, right as Gen Z, the generation most vocal about the soulless nature of work, started to come of age. I mean, as a millennial, I always felt that rather than giving me a purpose, work robbed me of a purpose more than anything else. Growing up as a kid, there were so many things that gave me meaning and purpose that I was always told that I'd have to give up because I would need a real job. Everything from playing basketball to volunteering to taking care of abandoned dogs at the animal shelter. I never got rich doing any of these things, but they gave me a way bigger purpose than working for a corporation ever could. It seems Gen Z has seen the light on this as well, which is why Let It Rot has become a global phenomenon, and I couldn't be more proud of them for this. I recently saw a trend in China where young Zoomers are opting to just move back home and take care of their aging parents for a small allowance per week. This brainwashed consumer society would laugh at them as a bunch of losers, of course, but if you think about it logically, is it really more meaningful to stand in front of a luxury hotel door with a fake smile on your face pretending to give a shit about the next rich person on vacation? I would certainly think spending time with and taking care of your family gives you more purpose. Of course, I understand some of us have shitty families, and well, that's perhaps another story for another video. Solutions. Let's talk solutions. As I mentioned in the beginning, I actually have some solutions for you if you're watching this and finding this to be relatable. Now, I have to first preface this by saying that solutions are tricky because the ideal solution is going to vary depending on the individual. We're all more or less facing the same problems, but a solution that would work for a 20-year-old single guy in America might not work for a 30-year-old married guy with kids in India. Every time I've tried to propose solutions in my videos, I always get a comment of, well, but this only works if you're single. This only works if you're from America. This only works if you're from Europe, so on and so forth. Look, guys, I wish I could save all of you. I really wish I could. But the only way I could do that is if I was secretly the second coming of Jesus and I could just wave a magic wand and make everyone rich. Hate to break it to you, unfortunately, I'm not. But here's the best solution I can give that worked for me personally as well. It's not going to work for all of you, but I think it could work for most of you. Part of what's enslaved us to the broken modern day system of work is our reliance on money. You need money to survive, to pay your rent and bills, so on and so forth. But money is a relatively recent invention in the context of human history. People survived long before money existed, and the way they did that was through a bartering system. Basically, I'll do this in exchange for that. Now, believe it or not, you can still do this today through the form of volunteer exchange work, instead of traditional 9-to-5 jobs. Basically, you can go to workaway.info and you search for a volunteering experience that you would actually find meaning and purpose in and apply for it. It can be volunteering at a hostel, helping a family with their kids, walking dogs, anything. In exchange for generally a chill 20 hours per week of volunteer work, your host provides you with free food, accommodation, and in some cases, even a small stipend salary. For young people, especially, the free accommodation alone makes this a far better option, even economically speaking, than wage slaving away 60 hours a week, only to see your entire paycheck be eaten up by your rent alone. Since you don't have to pay for the expensive transportation costs to get to and back from work and the insane cost of rent and food in the West, you'll find that you'll actually save up a lot more money volunteering 20 hours a week than wage slaving away for 60 hours a week, because your living expenses are so much less. But more importantly, this gives you more mental space and free time to find your purpose. Financial issues aside, it's just not possible to find your purpose and escape this meaningless nihilism when half of your day is spent either working or dealing with work-related activities such as commuting. So while you're volunteering, try to spend your free time figuring out what is it you want to do in life and what makes you happy and gives you purpose. I can't answer that question for you, but I have shown you a way you can position yourself to have the mental time and space to figure it out. The broader solution. Okay, so volunteering can be a great solution for you individually speaking, depending on your circumstances, of course, but there's still a fundamental problem with this on a broader, more macro level. I'm sure someone in the comments will ask, and rightfully so, but if everyone takes your advice and does this, won't that just oversaturate the volunteer barter market and make it impossible to get a job there too? This is a fair question to ask, and the answer to that question is yes. And I'm glad you asked that, because this exposes the fundamental problem with the broken modern day system of forcing people to work. As a millennial, when I was growing up, our delusional boomer parents kept forcing the idea of college onto us, much like they probably did to you as well. Their logic was that in their time, everyone who got a degree got a good job as well. What they overlooked was the fact that degrees guaranteed a good job back then, specifically because not everyone had them. If everyone now has a degree, that's not going to guarantee everyone gets a good job. It's just going to make a degree itself less special and less valuable. As a result, millions of millennials ended up working jobs that didn't even require a job or a degree in the first place. College degrees became oversaturated. Now, I would have thought that they learned their lesson with millennials and would come up with a better solution for Gen Z, but instead, these delusional boomers simply doubled down on their outdated trash advice that had already failed with millennials. Oh, the problem is you can't be studying a useless degree like business or gender studies. You need to be studying something serious, like the STEM fields. They're practically begging for people right now. Yes, but the problem is they're only begging for people right now because not everyone has a STEM degree. When you push everyone to get a STEM degree, well, guess what happens? Now, the tech job market is oversaturated to hell, and even guys with 10 to 15 years developer experience are struggling to find work. Just like with college degrees, the tech job market has now become oversaturated to hell. So now that both useless degrees like gender studies and serious degrees like computer science have been oversaturated to hell, you would think these delusional boomers giving you crucial advice about your future would have learned their lesson by now and came up with a better solution. I mean, maybe the third time's the charm, right? Wrong. The newest solution I'm seeing from them now is just get into the trades. Again, this might work for you individually and at this particular moment because there's not that much competition for the trades right now. But if they push everyone to get into the trades, the same exact thing that happened with college degrees and the tech job market will also happen to the trades. The competition will get oversaturated to hell, and it will be impossible to find a job there too. Do you see the pattern by now? All the advice you've been given by your delusional boomer and Gen X parents are individual solutions and not a solution on a macro level. It's easier to say, just get a better job, than to actually address the real underlying problems. But we have to do it. Otherwise, we're just going to be stuck in this perpetual cycle of rinsing and repeating, pushing the oversaturation from one job market to the next. I remember when I was around 8 years old and my mom told me to clean my room, and instead of actually cleaning up the mess, I just shoved the mess into the closet and hid it. But this is literally how absurd and ridiculous your parents are to you when they tell you to just get a better job. They don't actually solve any problems in the long run. They just push the problems from one job market to the next. And unlike the messy room of an 8-year-old child, this delusional advice has real-world negative consequences for your career and your future. Okay, so where am I going with all this? And what is the ultimate macro societal-wide solution? I've thought about this a lot, and I've come to the conclusion that the only way to solve this problem from a macro level is a universal basic income. I know it's controversial and is not a perfect solution. I'm not saying it is. But what I am saying is I don't see any other solution that actually solves the problem on a macro level. David Graeber, the author of the book we discussed earlier, actually agrees with this, which is why he argues in his book that a universal basic income along with heavy unionization is the only way forward. This is the only way we can actually provide an actual solution for everyone, rather than just perpetuating this endless cycle of just get a better job and oversaturating one job market after another. Now, I know I've probably spurred a bunch of anti-UBI critics to chirp in the comments section. If you're against UBI, I respect your opinion, but I'd like to ask you if you can think of a better solution. I'm not talking about an individual solution like just get into the trades. I'm talking about an actual society-wide solution that actually solves problems on a macro level, not just an individual level. If you can think of a better solution, I'm happy to hear it. But I've personally yet to hear one myself. So this was my best effort to provide you guys not just with problems, but also with solutions. Individually speaking, I'd look into volunteering, but to solve the problem on a more macro societal level, a universal basic income will be necessary, and we'll just have to figure out a way to get it implemented. And I believe that this will ultimately solve the problem of the intense nihilism and meaninglessness that a lot of young people feel today. There are, in fact, plenty of things in life that give you purpose and meaning, whether it's taking care of your family or just enjoying one of your hobbies. These things might not necessarily pay you, but they're absolutely important, and no one can say they're not. And the only way we're going to start appreciating these things is by freeing ourselves from the shackles of modern day work and separating our own self-worth from whatever our job title is.